Am I?
So
I was going to say, am I allowed to use this? Because I kept
totally
making
use
jokes
this.
the whole time during the PlayStation conference that everyone looked like they were rendered. And what I assume happened is that because they were all shooting in remote locations, they tried to balance everything the same way, so everyone looks like they're in Until Dawn.
Like a bunch of post-process, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was watching it with a bunch of developers, and yeah, exactly the same thing of like actual 3D artists going, I don't know, that cloth might be fake. That looks wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Austin,
like,
I don't imagine you know anything about that video process, but for reference, for everyone who doesn't know, Austin showed up in the conference yesterday. I did not know he was going to be there. I just went, Austin!
Wait, at what point?
Austin's literally in the conference.
He's like big face. You said something about the future of dreams and hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
He's in the PlayStation conferse.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Cut into a clip of that, by the way.
Expect the unexpected.
Yeah, it was just a funny, like they had Matt Nava record some stuff for it because Pathless was folded into the montage of stuff at the end. And so Matt had done some special capture of the current state of the game based for that purpose. And they said, will you kind of answer some of these questions on camera and we'll figure out how to fit it in. And they said, and then I just get a message saying, hey, Austin, you should do this too, but we need it tomorrow or kind of thing. And so, yeah, I just grabbed my phone and just did it in here. This was like maybe a week ago. I had no idea. I'd kind of forgotten about what it was for because it's like a week ago feels like obviously 100 years ago.
Our world and the industry. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. There you go. I forget.
It was one of those moments.
I dropped so many pearls of wisdom.
The funny thing was that, they asked me to specifically speak about, excitement for tech and blah 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 and
polygons, yeah.
And yeah, I mean it's not unlike what happened here, where it's like they clip us quoting a press release basically as if we have this hot breaking news scoop that we're unleashing. But so yeah, I think because what they quoted me as saying was if I am so bold, it was horrendously cliche, because I basically, in the context of a 5-minute video I sent them, talking about various tech or whatever, the moment where I say, expect the unexpected is the part that they grab.
Yeah.
And
did you guide that?
I didn't even remember saying that. I was like, that's awfully platitude-ish for me. I like to think, I hope, I wish.
I love it.
I
trust that that's a word, but is that a platitude-ish?
Well, platitude is the word.
No,
and
I understand
kind of stretching.
that. I know the I'm talking about your derivative.
Yeah,
of that
I'll
word.
go with. It was rather platitudinous.
There we go. That's more believable.
Yeah,
Hi, Mike
exactly.
Bithell.
I laugh because I've been there, man. Like I
Same.
remember, I think it was PS4. We did they did a similar thing, like with a bunch of talking heads, and they actually because back then we could travel and do things. They I went to a studio and they recorded me, and yeah, similarly did 5 minutes of yeah, it's really interesting how this technology is going to do this and this, and it's probably the future, and then it's probably the future was the one clip that
I've
it's
done
oh no.
sort of
Was
commercials
David Byrne
like that
part of that, by the way?
Gears of War. I've done Xbox. I did a Nintendo one, and every single time I'll give a candid answer and they'll be like, we need just a little bit. And I'm like, fine. They really need you to say the dramatic emotional things or it all gets cut. Yeah, that's how it works. It's
Troy, you were about to say something, mate.
I was making a terrible joke. I said, was David Byrne a part of that? Hey, 2 of the squares, 3 of the squares? All right, now we got it.
Mine's a polite one. I didn't get it fully.
Welcome to another episode of Play, Watch, Listen, everybody. I'm Alanah.
Watch.
I'm
joined...
listen.
What am I? Which one am I? Wait, if there's only
you
Play,
can be
Watch,
all three,
Listen.
Actually. You can be.
No, this doesn't make any sense though.
I'm all
Play,
but
Watch,
Troy has a
Listen.
serious case of launch week brain. It's brilliant.
Wait,
we had a week
your
off.
launch week brain?
No, you do.
I'm saying you've got launch week.
Which
brain.
one am I?
Which one am I?
You are watch. No, you're all 3, Troy. You can be all 3.
Guys, you have me in the throes of an existential crisis. These are the questions that I've been asking myself.
You can play characters that you mocap.
You can watch.
You can
me
listen
do those things.
to your voice, and you can watch you do things. So you
watch
are
my face.
all 3.
The
Uh,
Alpha and the Omega.
I
Mike
did show up. Talk about who else
sort of
showed
is
up
too.
at the conference. I made a few appearances. In the
Can
very
I do my
beginning.
intro first before you brag about your PlayStation press conference
Not bragging,
appearances?
just pointing out. People
Oh
can think
my
it's shit.
God.
Go ahead.
Austin
Do your thing.
Wintory, who is a video game composer, now our most famous friend because he was the only one here who showed up in the PlayStation conference. Troy Baker,
Except Troy, probably, and she's going to point out
who
shortly.
I think may have actually shown up much earlier as... you definitely showed up as Joel. Did you show up as anyone else?
I was the pre-roll. Yeah, I showed up. There were multiple iterations of characters I've done. Joel was in there. Higgs was in there. Delson was in there. Sam Drake was in there. But what I loved is that they used the young Sam, Chase Austin, who played young Austin. He was like, who plays that character in this. And he was like, we were born for greatness. And I was like, ooh, when they said that, I got chills. There's a lot of things that I have mixed feelings about the conference, but that will be our episode.
The whole episode to get through to that. And then we also have game director Mike Bithell, who did not show up in the conference.
Utterly uninvolved.
Am I
I thought about...
process.
To me,
No,
you're pointing at nobody. I guess it would sort of be Austin.
No,
But,
for me, you're pointing at
No,
the edge of
Austin
the
is
screen.
here for me. Boop.
No, Mike
There's
is below
Austin,
you
and
for me.
there's you. Wait, God dang it. There's
It
you.
happens based on the timing of who joins. So usually
I was-
Austin joins first. He was notably lost today. So it usually is the
Interesting.
exact same framing, but it changes every time.
So wait, you're
Changes
top
every time.
left. I'm top right.
I'm top right.
Flip,
Don't worry
so you're
about it.
over
It's not a
here.
big deal. Don't worry about it. It's all good.
I just want to know where I stand, guys. I want to know who
It's
I
funny
am.
if we did this like a book. In mine, it actually is perfectly the AATM.
Still
it's
lobbying
actually,
for that, aren't
Mine's
you?
Japanese AATM, actually. All right, this is great content for our largely audio listening podcast.
Use your mind. Use your imagination, people.
A lot of empathy for the audio crowd.
All right, so we saw the PlayStation conference. First question: how do you guys feel about the way it looks? People have a lot of hot takes on this.
The
The
you mean Big
appearance-
Hero 6 model?
Yep, that PlayStation 5. It looks to me like a router. I know a lot of people said
It-
that.
Please,
can't get it
Mike,
out of
what
my
does it
head.
look like? What does it look like, Mike? What does it look like? Be cute.
Be cute.
I know
Does
what
it
he's
look-
fishing for. I want you to say it too. What did I say it looked like?
You said it looked like a router.
Ah, you bastard.
A router.
A router.
It looks
like
like a
router
right
to me.
router.
Here's one thing okay, let's get an analysis. Are you a lay flat or stand up PlayStation guy per person? Whatever.
Okay, so my entire home console setup will not work if things have to stand. I have one Xbox that I have standing in the only place that works, but my home console, like the cabinet, I don't think is tall enough to house the next generation of consoles. They have to lay sideways.
That
so-
one doesn't. Like, that is
Apparently,
No, it does, I think.
It does.
It does. I've seen pictures of it
Yes,
laying sideways.
but they never
That'll
showed
be
it.
an IGN.
laying...
That's the IGN article tomorrow. Biff will confirm.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
I've also
PlayStation
heard that it
sideways.
does, but also
The curviness of
Yeah.
it and its ears and everything would lay cattywampus.
it shouldn't be. It should just stay on the lips, which in theory is better for ventilation.
Troy.
On the little, I don't know.
I
what
yield
else to
my
roll
remaining
on.
time to the floor.
They look like lips on the sides. I don't know what else you want me to say.
I loved. I was gonna say I loved Troy's like.
I'm 11 years old.
I was gonna say eighth
You're having a
grade.
good time of your life, though.
The eighth grade sex ed class reaction
Oh,
just there
man.
was really.
But it means that it wouldn't touch anything on the bottom, which means it would be better ventilated. And what the reports coming out now keep saying is PlayStation 5 is going to have better load times, but the Xbox Series X should have more consistent frame rates. Like, it's like they're targeting different things. It's been so interesting to watch them openly compete with each other, even in interviews. Like, Phil's been really open about how he doesn't think the Xbox Series X is going to sell well, which it's all just been such a bizarre launch period. And this conference is like a very good example of, like you were saying, Mike, wanting it to be E3, but knowing it's not because everyone looks like they're a fucking robot for some reason. It was so strange to watch.
I
I
was
did
super
extensive
sad.
mocap for my cameo. It was
Bastard.
we were on the
Troy
stage
did
for
it,
weeks.
actually.
Troy directed.
It made me real. I was watching it and then I got super sad because it reminded me that I'm normally there and we're normally sweating our balls off outside first and everyone's getting too drunk before and we all pile
Eating at
in
the
like
food
kids coming back
carts
from
and doing
recess.
the
Yeah,
whole
with the
thing.
food trucks.
Yeah.
And we go to the conference. It's a nightmare to get down to the forum or where is it at, Austin?
The at the LA Live, you mean?
That's
No,
the only
it's-
easy one to get to. Wherever the PlayStation
No,
conference usually
it's-
is. It's moved twice, hasn't it?
It's a big car park. I can't remember.
Yeah,
That's the
but
one
it's
that's like
it's
a
at
hangar.
UCLA. It's at a UCLA. Is that the forum? No, it's at the forum. Whatever it's at. Doesn't matter. The convention center. So it's all there, and we're all, it's like this great little, mixer beforehand, but it's outside, and so everyone's hot, and we all go inside, and then it's just like we're surrounded by our colleagues and just this voracious crowd of people that's so excited to see this stuff, and it's dark, and it just reminded me of the fact that we're not there, and without that haptic feedback of the second that you see the logo come up, and people are like, we knew it. We knew they were working on something, and you hear the crowd gasp. That to me is what I miss.
I guess we also miss that even from people who don't have the privilege that we do of being able to attend E3 in person, which I do love. It is my favorite week of the
I'm
year.
saying
I think I said
even
that last week.
watching it though.
You miss the
Yeah,
crowd
that's what I
sounds,
mean. Is
don't you?
even
On the
watching it, they
stream.
usually have crowd sounds. So not even having that does mean the atmosphere is really odd. And I feel like
Sterile.
maybe this presentation, and I don't know if it's because of the way it was laid out or the way it was paced, didn't grab me in the way that E3 press conferences usually do. Like I wasn't like glued to my screen, maybe with the exception of Spider-Man. That was the one time, which was very
Dude.
early on, that I was like, oh my God, yes!
Even just the intro of that, like Yuri's voice coming over the top, and then just watching that suit evaporate and reveal. That was a great reveal for Miles
Really
Morales.
good. Because it pans slowly and then you see his mask, and I love that. It's also, man, Insomniac's working on, like, I think that from what I can tell, that Spider-Man, I think it's literally called Spider-Man Miles Morales, is going to be like a standalone, like a Lost Legacy or a Left Behind was for The Last of Us, rather than
Yeah,
a
they've
new
actually
game.
clarified that
They
because they
did?
were a little confusing on the messaging. But yeah, I think that's exactly what it is, like the standalone DLC.
I'll take it.
Essentially.
They could make 1 million of those and I will take them forever. Spider-Man
Super
can
fun.
just keep doing that.
I texted Ned Luke and I said, I was like, it just doesn't get old. It's like a great old leather jacket. It looks so good and I can't help but slip into it. When I saw the GTA 5, I was like, all over me. Just I want to jump back into that world. It looked great. I want more story content. I want more heists. I have no idea what they're offering, but everything that they showed, I was like,
Single player
and to my
content, man.
knowledge, maybe someone else can confirm or deny this. That's the first title that's done 2 console jumps, right?
Oh,
Can you think of another one that's because that came out on past gen,
It did.
then was one of the first to port to new gen or
Well,
current gen, and
I
then it'll be
mean,
also next gen.
I mean, are we counting
Xbox
Thomas was alone
original.
In
What were
The
you saying,
original
Mike?
Xbox backwards compatible makes that complicated. He made a bad joke.
Oh.
It's like not. It's like. Is that a joke? I suddenly feel
He said it with
Mike's
a smile.
heart breaking a little bit there.
He was dead on the inside.
I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more, right?
The backwards compatibility
yeah.
program makes that murky, right?
But
But,
I'm
they're
not
not
talking about-
necessarily ports. I mean, they have a dedicated team up in Seattle who work on that. They do put a lot of effort into making sure those original Xbox games can play on Xbox One, but that's not quite the same.
They still haven't been able to do. I mean, Modern Warfare 2, they've only done the campaign, so we'll leave that one alone. But I'm talking about like remasters. That's not a port. That's not backwards compatibility. That is a like we up-resed everything. Like even when they showed it, I was like, dang, dude, those character models look fantastic. The world looks great. But there was nothing. But besides that, I guess the Resident Evil looked the best to me. But I don't know if that's necessarily indicative of the game. But I was just kind of underwhelmed. This sounds shitty, by the way. This is the problem. Is that for me, and then I feel like I'm dominating right now. But it's the launch of a new console. It's the launch of this is what is the shining example of this new generation of consoles and the best of the hardware. And so I feel like the expectation is always so high. Any game that gets made is amazing. But Deathloop looked really cool to me. I thought that there was more. I was more impressed by the diversity of narrative. Even though there's two games that are very similar.
Love that studio. I love them so much.
I'm talking about there were more, and I knew this was going to happen years ago because we saw the shift happening. We saw it first with The Last of Us. We saw it with Horizon New Dawn. We saw it even with Infamous, the standalone DLC for that First Light, with them shifting over and going, it's fun to play as a female character. And not just like ticking the box, but also like, no, we're writing and creating female characters. Not since Samus has there been like a strong female protagonist that is like an iconic character for a console generation, right? And if you look at the lineup of Sony, of PlayStation, it's pretty balanced now because you have Horizon New Dawn, you've got these great characters, and being able to see people of color and strong female characters that were at the root of the game, not the cable router, anyway.
The route of the game.
The route of the game.
The route, yes.
I didn't see anything that was like, I guess the moon baby, that last one.
In terms of things that technically impressed me, Gran Turismo, of course. That's the game that they always show. It's a racing game to show off new hardware. It did look stunning. Sure. But I was actually also really impressed by Ratchet and Clank. That gameplay was like the way that it seems to actually pull dimensions into one another. And I'm jumping to conclusions here, but it seemed to me like that game, in order to run, would have sort of multiple dimensions immediately loading in for you to be able to pull from them, because different people can do it at different times. And I actually think that is technically incredibly impressive and very next gen. Like, I don't know that we could do that on the hardware that we have today. That was the one that I was like, it's a sleeper game because it looks childish. People aren't going to register what that game is doing. But that one, I was like, that's fucking nuts if that works the way that I think it does. Shout out to Ratchet.
It does. That's the thing. That's the one that's like the secret kind of killer app, I think. That's the one, because you always have the game that shows off the new feature, but we're so used to the new innovative feature being something completely gimmicky in terms of like the touchpad on the top of the PS4 controller or like something like that. No, that's 100% just built as a game to show off relatively fast loading. It's not instant, and that actually makes me more impressed and makes me believe that it's actually kind of indicative of the real game.
Yeah.
Because there's actually a hidden load when you're transitioning through a portal. There's about 2 seconds, well, about one to 2 seconds, where they basically put like a texture map on it. So it's not like Portal where you just walk straight through. There's a slight load, like you go out into a universe.
So it is loading, and they've just faked the transition, basically. Like God of War did that a bunch of ways when you're watching that game.
It's like a 2-second elevator ride in Mass Effect, but that's fine. That's no one's expecting instantaneous, absolutely instantaneous, but that's kind of hiding that stutter nicely. And that's a kind of game that wouldn't. It's brilliant. I love it. So that's really cool. That's the.
Like, I'm glad that you felt the same way, because I was like, I don't know if I'm just perceiving something that's not actually there, but I really think that like Ratchet and Clank is the one that is the hardware one that I'm like want to know more about. That's the interview that I want to get, is Insomniac be like, tell me how this works, because from my understanding, you have however many universes you have in this game or however many maps, and you are letting me transition between them that fast whenever I want to. I imagine there's some restrictions on that, but that is very, very, very impressive if they've managed to do that quickly. Like, that's the one that we can't do right now. Everything else...
It's also concise. Like, you could fake it. You could do, like, smaller environments and overlap them. And there's been games that have done that kind of jumping between dimensions kind of thing before. But the scale of world, like, it's a very good first game of a new generation. It's like just touching on that, just testing that water. The one that I think as well is going to surprise people is Spider-Man in the same way. Is that's very quietly and obviously, or at least seems obvious to me, that's basically the test case of the loading for open world games. So they're basically going to port over New York, presumably. They'll have to. and fast travel will be instantaneous, or it'll like in the demos we've seen where
Although that's
you'll be
ironic.
somewhere, fade to black, fade back up, and you're where you are, and
Yeah.
you're not going to have any more loading times.
It's funny,
that's
I don't
another
know.
one I think will surprise people.
I don't know a single game, a single open world game, that has the most underused fast travel as
That's true,
Spider-Man.
actually.
That's a really good
Nobody
point.
wants
That's
to.
a really good point.
No, that's
yeah.
the
That's a really good
game.
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't think I've ever once deliberately thought, like, it wasn't even that I didn't use it. I remember thinking consciously, why on earth would I do this? Like,
Yeah.
they finally managed to crack the code of a satisfying Spider-Man simulator, and it was so much so that, like, when I get a mission and it pings across Manhattan, like I'm in, yeah, exactly. I'm like in the Bronx, and the mission's in Battery Park. I'm going, oh hell yeah! I have like 5 minutes of swinging before
Did
I
you
even get there.
see the video
true.
Brian shared of the little boy reacting to being Spider-Man the first time in that game?
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's really
lovely.
good. So Brian is in the creative director, I believe is his role on that game. He shared this video on his Twitter. I'll link it to you guys, of this little boy reacting to swinging through the city for the first time, and his face is just the cutest thing you've ever seen. And I replied to his tweet, and I was like, I think I did the same thing. Didn't tell Brian the context of I did the same thing while sitting next to Brian. 100%. The first time I played that game, he was sitting next to me, and I remember my face being like, oh my god. And there are games that have touched on that. Like, I love Prototype does a really good job. Saints Row does a
Wow.
really good job. Troy's Saints Row, as we call it in this house, does a really good job of like making just getting across the city really, really fun. But yeah, the fluidity of Spider-Man is crazy, and I think that's actually a really good one to use as a barometer for comparison. If you play Marvel Spider-Man and then you play Spider-Man Miles Morales in quick succession from one another, the difference between those two probably is going to be really telling where the hardware is concerned. Obviously, it's year one, things change dramatically. But I feel like that is a really good one to see. Like, it is the same engine, it will be the same assets, but it is actually going to be a tested performance. Like, maybe our combos can get crazier. I don't know. Like, that is a really good one to point out that way. And I think, like, I enjoyed the conference, but I think I'm largely like a little bit with you, Troy, where I was a little underwhelmed in that a lot of those games had already been announced.
A lot of them, but a lot of them hadn't.
It's true.
And again, I feel
Already.
like it's so easy to go, it wasn't up to my standards. If anyone listening in the industry feels like I'm being disparaging in any way of what is clearly years and years and years of work, it has nothing to do with the game. It has everything to do with, I think, just the context of this show coming out and how I felt about it, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's and I've even said this before.
Unintentionally was indicative of what we're going through right now. It the whole time was a reminder of the situation that we're in, which is brutal and totally not their fault. I actually think, considering the circumstances, it looked very professional. I feel like they did a very good job, considering how difficult it sounds like that production was with them trying to do it and not doing it multiple
Industry
times.
professional problem solvers, man. That it is. They have constantly proven themselves. And I will just kind of sit and watch Herman kind of talk about anything, because there's just this part of me that feels like at any moment he's going to turn into a Bond villain. But
It's just the accent.
I'm kind of waiting for that to happen. But he's just the nicest guy, and I get this, like, I love Jack Tretton. You know, I felt like PlayStation. It feels I'm feel like I'm removing him. I love when I hear the people that are at the helms of these consoles truly speaking passionately about. It's like everything is always like we're giving the player more power. There's like power to the players has always been PlayStation's thing, and I feel like clearly these are companies that have to meet quarterly reports, and if they don't pay their bills, they don't get to make games. But I still feel at the root of this is the fact that they really do want to make experience for players that are constantly blowing people away, and I don't feel
Completely.
I feel like they don't get there until they're blown away. So they're blown away.
I think that point is lost a lot because the companies of that size are always having to have, or earnings reports and those kinds of like shareholder meetings and that kind of thing. Because I've never once been in a meeting on a project, big or small, where the meeting is, I think this will sell more copies if we do this. It is always, how great does this make the jump feel? This person just implemented a new feature that tweaked the animations, and like, just hit jump. How exciting is it to jump? Or like, look how beautiful this texture is. We just got new backgrounds in, or what. There's always an almost like childlike excitement to it, even in its most. And I'm always guilty of being kind of idealistic and perhaps naive about these kinds of things, and I tend to see the best to the point of almost willful ignorance sometimes, and so I recognize that I may be overly rosily painting some of these things, but to me it is always what you're trying to say. And to that end, I actually do disagree. Oh, I shouldn't say disagree. I just had a very different reaction to it than the two of you, Troy and Alanah, because I don't know if it's precisely because of just how worn down I've been feeling and kind of exhausted by just the cumulative. This is Troy and I were talking earlier about the cumulative effect of starting months ago with the beginnings of quarantine and lockdown. And it's just like this continuous escalation of things feeling more demanding emotionally and more exhaustively kind of large scale. It's like the problems are always seemingly getting more intense, and the desire to try to positively contribute in some way is always kind of pulling harder and harder and harder. And at some point it's just so exhausting. And so I think the result of which was that I think I went into it really prepared to feel like a kid who's just wowed by all this magic being wheeled out for me. I think there was a part of me that desperately needed to revert to a kind of innocent, just mouth dropped kind of excitement, because I felt like
I definitely had moments.
I felt like that after every trailer. I mean, every single one of them, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta get that!" And I was like messaging Jan at Gorilla, going, "Holy shit, Horizon! Like, this is amazing!" Like one after the next.
There's real animals now.
It really.
What was it? The wolf? I was like, oh, puppy, the puppy.
A Little Devil Inside is probably the game that got my little kid excitement up the most, but that game had already been announced.
Really nicely designed.
So cool, and I'm so interested in what it is. It just looks so sweet. One of the people who was on our live stream said, "This is what I think I look like when I'm playing Dark Souls. Like, it's a very Dark Souls-y thing, but this is what I feel like I look like when I'm playing Dark Souls, which is like this weedy, wide-eyed kind of idiot running around in this really cool world." Like, I was very on board with that. Still thinking about Bug Snacks. But Austin, is there anything like in particular that really blew you away?
I don't know. Honestly, it's hard for me to single any one particular out, simply because I found myself just like on this roller coaster saying like that looks amazing, and that looks amazing, and just kind of one after the next, and feeling like a lot of them seem to really throw down bold sort of design and narrative, where I thought to my, like, there were a handful where I thought, I don't really know what that game is. But not in a way where, like, cause obviously there's a continuous tension always of, show us a gameplay trailer. Like this is too deceptive of the game. People have gotten wise to the idea that these cinematic trailers can be very, very misleading. But there were some, like Troy was saying, the Moon Baby. I can't remember what that one was called.
Whatever it was.
But that was one where I was watching it and I was kind of transfixed, going, if the game is anything at all like what I'm seeing, I don't know that I've played something quite like this.
I also don't know what that game is, though. That just looked like a really cool scene. I was like, oh, he jumped off the planet and landed on the moon.
The only thought that I had,
but the surreal hologram cat and
Huh?
Yeah, the hologram cat. It just immediately looked Japanese to me. Like that game
Is
definitely
it a
looks.
hologram? Because it looked like ghost, like ghost cats.
I thought it was a hologram because you also like see its ribs and stuff. Like it's a glitching hologram. But then there was also Stray, the one with the robots where you play as the cat, which I was
The
also very on
cyberpunk.
board with.
Yeah, that was
Stray's the one
also.
that I'm excited about. That
Yeah.
looked beautiful. And
That
also
felt like
everyone messaged me assuming it was my game. That's right.
That
like-
is a very Bethelian game.
Like the first like minute of that trailer, like, and Stray's been out, like known about for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, I've been
I think
looking at
3
images of
years
that
almost,
for
maybe?
years.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I think yeah, but it does kind of definitely like the robots, and there's some stuff that looks like similar to our games.
Some Bithel ass shit.
And I say again, sorry.
Nothing.
I
was
said
just saying
Bithelian.
It's Bithel ass shit. Everyone's like, I smell him from a mile off. He made that, but he
I
didn't.
feel no, I didn't, but like I did get a few people messaging me and stuff, but it totally looks beautiful. It looks much better than something I'd make. So I'm super into that one. That looks amazing. I've no idea what it is still,
Yeah.
but I assume you play as the cat.
I loved.
do.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I to me, it was just one very promising. You know, who knows how many of those will turn out to be really great. Obviously, to Troy's point a minute ago, there's untold hundreds or thousands of people working very hard to try to make every one of those games really, really great.
Mhm.
I thought that the presentation did everybody a favor. Like there was no game. Sometimes when you have a lineup like that, there's one or two that kind of somehow end up being like the kind of forgotten stepchild, where it feels like they're sort of like, oh, aren't you cute amongst all these titans? And I
Sure.
didn't feel like anything came
No, you're
across
right.
that way.
I think they balanced it really well, and there was a good mix of games that look more family friendly and colorful and cute, and indies
But they always
and
have
more
those.
serious games. I felt like the
Yeah.
variety of games shown was like probably the biggest strength. I was really impressed by that. And to your point, there are things that I hadn't seen before. Even stylistically, I feel like Ghostwire Tokyo, I think it's called Ghostwire.
Yeah.
That, from what we've seen of it before, looks like a horror game. But then it turns out it's a horror game where you're basically a fucking superhero? That never happens. Like, it's so uncommon to have a game that looks that scary, where it seems like you are casting spells of some kind, implying that you have some kind of supernatural ability. Like, that's so uncommon. I think Resident Evil will occasionally touch on that with like an unlimited rocket launcher. But for the most part, horror games don't give you that much power. And I love horror, so I was so curious about
It's about
what
reducing your power, right?
Right,
It's about
to- making you feel like you don't stand a chance is such an easy way to make things really tense. That's why
As a
Amnesia
s-
works so well.
As a tangent off of that, have you watched the Amazon series The Boys?
No.
Oh yeah.
I have not.
What? How are you not?
You know, I don't watch anything. We've been over this.
That's true.
You did watch Psycho.
I did
Oh.
watch Psycho. Oh no, I just
Well, but before we get into that, because that's also potentially
I think
a
I
deep
think
dive.
the show
About that.
should never. We should always just like Star Wars. We should always reference it and
but
then
never actually have the conversation.
never actually have a
Never actually have the
conversation about it.
conversation.
It's all right. It's, you know, new film. We've got time. It's still trending.
That's true.
We'll figure it out.
I do recommend The Boys though. I really liked it, but I liked that it shows the grisly side of the realistic sort of
Yeah.
absolute mayhem, because it basically is a superhero horror show that's also kind of a dark comedy and
Very
but
dark
the-
comedy. Pulpy.
but yeah, like the idea that just like the insane violence that superhero powers would realistically exert on, especially on like normal non-superhero people.
It's like
I
a
thought they-
hardcore version of Incredibles.
Yeah.
It's
Interesting.
like,
But
what
also
if
very
supers-
cynical. It's very, very
Yeah.
cynical, since it's all about like how much they're trending on social media, and their value as a superhero is based around clicks and public engagement and all that kind of stuff.
like, oh, okay. I was gonna say, is it very cynical in like a Watchmen kind of way, or is it just?
I'd actually say it's more cynical than Watchmen. I'd say
by
it's kind of-
far. And Elizabeth
It's got a
Shue.
much. It really hates people. It's a show that actively doesn't
Interesting.
like you.
Wow.
I don't know if that's true because I mean,
It's 100% true, man. Like it's. I love it. It's really good, but like it
Yeah.
definitely has a very low estimation of like humanity and who we are and what we can be. Like it's definitely quite a downbeat show. Do you not think so? Did you see optimism in The Boys?
yeah.
Really?
But I mean, okay. I have two friends on the show.
Oh, who are your friends on the show?
Jack Quaid and Carl Urban.
Oh, cool.
And they are they're both, first of all, the biggest goofs in the world. And Carl always plays baddies, always. But to me, it's about,
Other than Eomer.
well, I mean, he's played other, like, but by and large, by his own admission, he's like, I always get called for baddies. He's like the character he played in Bourne. Well, also Star Trek, right? He got to play Bones, which is a funny. I'll tell you a funny story about that later. But I think it's the show at its root is really about idolatry and hero worship. And so it's not less about our humanity as much as it is about the dangers of elevating anybody to a place of idolatry and saying we should hold these people in high regard. I think it actually elevates humanity rather than puts it down. But
I think, but I also think that it shows that it's messy everywhere. Like it shows, because the show simultaneously shows the danger of holding people up, as you say, and that idolatry, but it also shows both ends of that for the heroes as well, because you see how some of them they immediately get lost in that, and they believe the bullshit about themselves, and then there's others that are struggling by feeling like they are not what they are held up to be. And there's like this internal kind of almost split personality of them trying to be what is sort of like the moneymaker, but also be what they feel is true to themselves, and especially as those get more and more divergent. It's funny because a friend of mine wrote the music for the show, so I was hearing about it through him for a while, but I didn't know anything about it. And then it was like it had been out for a while, and I was just kind of cruising. This was a few months ago, but I was looking for something to watch, and so Angela and I put it on, knowing very little actually. Somehow it had been out for a while, and I'd heard, it was well received, and it was like Amazon's biggest hit, I think, up till now. And so it was like, it had gotten a lot of good mention, but then, finally put it on and like basically binged it in a day and a half. Cause after the first episode, I was like, holy hell, this thing is not fucking around.
From the very beginning of it too, from like the first 5 minutes of it, it's like, oh my, actually first like 60 seconds of it, it's like,
oh yeah,
well,
that's an intense. So that is the best cold open in television history. There's new series, right? There's more of it coming soon.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to a comic book series called Irredeemable. It's not very long, but
which is better, Irredeemable or Incorruptible? Because I have a take on this. Did you read it?
I think Irredeemable. I think Irredeemable.
Irredeemable starts better, Incorruptible finishes better.
I think that's fair.
The last episode of Irredeemable is the best. The very last.
I mean, I think the opening is really fucking good too.
Opening is fantastic. If you haven't read that series, it meanders a little bit.
Most people haven't, and that's why I'm like, give that
a read.
I
have no idea what you guys are talking about.
The baseline
tell us about it.
Like, just the really basic, because I don't really want to tell you anything else, is what if Superman was real, and because of the way people fucking treat him, because it's actually not very kind, he became the bad guy.
Just one day he goes, that's it.
Fuck you. Like the girl that he likes doesn't like him when he's himself, but likes the superhero. Fuck you. So it's just like he just kind of snaps and plays everyone and is very smart, and it's really, really good. I love that it is really just flipping that, and that seems like vaguely similar to some.
Which one of the two are you which one is that?
So Irredeemable is if a hero falls, then the villain must rise. So Irredeemable is the hero fallen, and Incorruptible.
That's what Alanah is talking about now.
Yeah, so it's a companion series.
Both, but yeah.
So you have Irredeemable. And then you have
like
Incorruptible.
Simultaneous, so the supervillain who turns good as well. Yeah.
So and so eventually what happens is they converge, and they flip the script on it, and it's just like, if who do you send to stop a superhero? You send a supervillain, and it's just like, let's go. Oh. Max damage,
it's really
dude.
Good.
It's so
really good series. It's probably pretty cheap to pick up now too. Like, I highly recommend checking it out. It's like
I did it on
weird
iPad,
ones I found. Oh yeah, it's on Comixology. I think. I think I found it in I used to just go to the comic book store once a week and just pick out a cover that I thought looked cool. And that was
Yeah.
one of those where I just picked it up and was like, yeah, this is dope. Really similar.
But even though it meanders, and it does
It
meander
does.
for like several issues.
It's not that
the-
long though.
No, but the way that it lands is so good.
Very good stuff. Highly recommend.
So good.
I'm gonna buy it.
We got very far away from the PlayStation conference.
Back to Weird Ears and Blue Light. The color alone, I was like, I don't know, man. Like I missed just that even the piano black of the PS2 or the PS3. You know, like I missed.
I keep hoping it'll release in black. Yeah.
I did
will.
comment to Angelo that the
Bad timing.
it does remind me of I do associate that sort of design aesthetic, I guess. Maybe aesthetic's not the right word, but maybe it's just purely the white color. But I said it does feel Nintendo to me.
Yeah.
To
Nintendo
see a
was white and blue.
console. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously
I
they
thought it
still
was
have
cool,
the blue
though.
lines.
It reminded me of Tom Cruise's apartment in the movie Oblivion. I was like, this console would be in that apartment, and I'm
Yeah.
down with that. I liked the ultra modern.
This is how someone would design a future console if you told them to do it in 2005. This is exactly what they would do. And like I'm looking at pictures
I'm
of
here
it
for
now.
that.
I have a thing where almost all new hardware I think looks silly from the jump. Like I've got my PS Pro sitting in front of me right now because I've been playing The Last of Us Part 2 on it. And at first I was like, looks like a goddamn hamburger. But now I'm like, no, I like it. It just takes a while for you to get used to hardware because it seems like
I feel
something
that's
that they should...
every single console.
Exactly. Every single one except the GameCube, which from the jump had a handle, so therefore was objectively the best.
Was
Everything
objectively
else
fantastic, yeah.
is just a mess. But I mean, it is really different. So it looks like the way, for the record, that it sits on the side is there's like a little stand you can put on the bottom of it. So it has this like circular stand, and then it'll stay above. It won't touch anything, kind of. If that makes
Look,
sense.
there's literally geniuses, and one in particular that is in charge of designing this, right? Like I'm there's nothing that is going to be. It's going to be perfunctory if left to Mark Cerny, right? He's going to go like, I don't care about you hold it this way because it's form follows function for sure.
Yeah.
So I know that there's a reason for everything. One of the biggest things, obviously, is Optical Drive. The fact that they're not, everyone thought is like, this is the last, PS4 is going to be the last bastion of hard format, and to
discs, you mean?
Yeah, discs will be gone. I thought it was going to be a purely digital console.
Well, you can buy it
Wait,
just
That's
digital.
an option, yeah.
I
There's two
missed that.
versions, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
there's a
They
digital
so
only.
and this
That's
is
why they
actually-
showed two.
There's two.
One is an optical drive and one doesn't.
Yes, so there's
Ooh.
PlayStation 5 and then the PlayStation 5 digital edition.
I'll have the digital edition, to
I
be
think I
honest
will
with you.
too.
I'm tempted by the digital.
I just don't buy. I have discs, and typically it's because people have like, here, man, you worked on this game. Here's the disc. I'm like, that's awesome. That's now a keepsake, and I have my little library of games. But unless it's a legacy game, I don't have it, and typically I can buy it.
I have about 50, like just sitting in a bookcase over there, and I have more in Australia. But I don't. Okay, I actually did really recently put a disc in, but that would be the most recently that I have in a year. Mostly they just sit there, and I have an attachment to discs. I like collecting stuff in general, but I also, even if you have a disc, you still don't technically own the thing. You just have a physical license rather than a digital one. I don't like the idea of things being digitally tied to an account in terms of ownership. I feel like it just
Why?
feels very shady. Well, I mean, if you lose your
'Cause
Steam
they'll
account, you
disappear.
lose access to every single game you bought on Steam. Like, I just,
but like, how often does that happen? It's this is the way that the entire industry works.
I
And
know.
anybody like Austin, I'm sure, with the software libraries and the plugins and everything that you have, there is so many layers of protection for that happening, and to the point where it becomes a service. It's an add-on suite of services that you can get to make sure that in the event that happens, thank God you paid the $4.99 a year or whatever to cover all of your license that you should. I transferred there's some stuff that I have on my computer that is licensed only to this computer. Now they're all licensed to a cloud. So if I change computers, I can clearly or easily move all of my licenses over and be able to do that. That's just the way the industry needs to work.
You're
The
right. It
reason
just
why
makes me
is to-
uneasy.
Yeah,
is
and there are examples, like with Netflix, where they won't for whatever reason a license on a title won't renew. And so if you're relying on Netflix to watch, like, let's say your favorite, well, I think The Office is actually a good example. Like The Office, I think, was the most watched show on Netflix. Like by far, it was just insane, the number of people but they kept saying, the license will expire and it's going to leave Netflix. And it did. And it's like, so,
Wait, when did it leave?
Well, I think it's gone now, isn't it? They've certainly been saying it was going to leave. Yeah. I'll sign.
Friends left. And then they went over to HBO Max. So
which did?
Friends. That was the whole thing. Is like they got.
Oh yeah, right.
Seinfeld.
Oh, and
got Seinfeld.
In fact, maybe
Seinfeld?
I'm thinking of Friends, but the point is that
I think you are thinking of Friends. Yeah. That was. Could be both.
Because nonetheless, but yeah. So my error notwithstanding, the point is that the lack of ability to kind of control where you see a thing easily compared with just it's on my shelf. I can see why that's. I'm mostly actually with Troy on this one.
Me too.
To me,
I really Troy is right. I know he's correct.
That's my new ringtone, by the way.
It's done.
Troy is right. I'm with Troy.
I should say text tone.
Silent Hill PT is such a good example of why it makes me uneasy. Is that like I have my base PS4 sitting down there. And I panic quite frequently about that console and plug it in once every 6 months just to make sure it's still working. Because I'm like, they took Silent Hill PT away. That game's gone. Like, sure, it's free and it's a demo. But it's still something that I'm like, I would be mortified if I lost this. I probably would be one of those people who would then buy $1,000 PS4 on eBay just for the chance to have that game again. You can actually transfer it between consoles. I really need to do that. So you can share it to your own consoles. I'm just going to do that to every piece of hardware I ever get that can take PT. It's going to have PT.
But that is so anomalous, right?
It is.
That is just the biggest
and that's
rarity.
That's why I ultimately agree with you. Is I recognize that those are hedge cases.
Yes.
I mean,
like Alan Wake on Steam, a number of years ago is another example of
Metal Gear Rising Revengeance got done. Noticing a trend with Konami. That's weird. There've been like a couple of things that have just people have lost access to when they've bought them. And again, you still don't own a game just because you own a disc, though. You just own the license in a physical form. And especially now.
But for practical purposes, you do own it. I mean, like, what are they going to send goons
disc
to your house and be like, we're going to need that back.
Toss me the whip. It. First, give me the lamp. I think that the lamp, the idol. Sorry.
I'm actually really
you throw me the idol, I'll throw you the weep.
I went Indiana Jones into Aladdin for some weird reason.
I'm really interested to see, to your point, Troy, like, I will probably get, frankly, if I'm buying it, like, we will probably get review units, but I think I would buy the digital version. And I'm very interested to see, it gives you a sense of where we are globally. Because it's so easy to forget that other people really don't have good internet connections. I would be working from home for Funhouse and Inside Gaming right now in Australia if I could. I so desperately wish I could. But nobody in my family has good enough internet for me to download a video game in less than 3 days. Like, I can't do it. So different countries, it's different. So I think we'll get a real good understanding of where we're at globally based on which one sells more. And I'm really interested to see those numbers.
I would love to know the demographics on, like, by and large, people who own consoles. If they are, like, Sean.
There's some of that's available.
Jacksepticeye, started off a cabin in the woods, deep in Western Ireland, So, I mean, there's clearly people out there that are kind of off the grid, and this is what they do. So I understand it's disenfranchising for a lot of people that are like, yo, man, I'm in a very, a narrow margin of a user base. Like, I just upgraded my internet to 1,000 meg. I've got 1 gig down.
Damn.
Like, it's hot, man. But like uploading and downloading videos and stuff that I've been doing, or making sure that I can have super high res bandwidth for recording, especially from home, has been necessary. But that's because I live in LA. If I was in somewhere else, was like, we got that AOL, what comes up, it goes, you got mail.
That's exactly how my family sounds.
That's exactly right. They're in a very strange city.
Spot on.
Hey,
Queensland accent.
The fastest any family member had was 22 down. And that was the fastest of all of them. And I called all of them. I was like, I wish I could work from home. There's nothing stopping me. I'd have to be on an American time zone, but I don't care. I could be at home, and that would be the best. But I would have to quit my job and lose all my money. So I can't.
But that's not like, I mean, what about like, they're out in the sticks. That's right.
My family is not out in the sticks, and that's the thing. They're in a major city, the third largest city in the fucking country. It's just Australian.
Yeah, but there's only 4 cities, though.
Yeah, we only have 3, so yeah. It's
and then there's just the middle.
It's so interesting that seems to be pervasively true about all of Australia, even Sydney.
Melbourne.
It
one time,
seems like
I uploaded a video to it was a Halo video for the Master Chief Collection originally. I remember this. I was in a hotel in Melbourne, and the video had finished uploading before I had managed to fill out the title and the tags. And I was like, does that mean it just goes live? What happens? Because there are parts of Melbourne where it's really well supported, which is actually why the bulk of the game dev scene in Australia is in Melbourne.
Is it Melbourne? I would imagine, honestly, that either in the tech sector or hotels, you're going to find the fastest internet as well. Because by and large...
It's all the out-of-towners used to fast internet that are going to demand it.
Slow internet.
No, I remember I was collaborating with Tripod on something, and I kept sending them WAV files, and they were like, we don't want to be jerks, but can you send MP3s? Because it just takes so much longer to download on our damn Aussie internet. And I was like, really? Because I've been to Sydney and Adelaide and Brisbane and Melbourne, and all seemed like completely modern cities by every measure that you could to analyze that. And they were like, yep, but just the infrastructure underneath it for the internet is just old. It's very old, yeah.
And the current government is not interested in replacing it. The most recent quote that I heard from a politician was, we just don't understand why we need it. Because they don't recognize that
it's
the internet is important for business now. It's ridiculous. It really sucks. I hope they fucking fix it. But we only have 8 minutes left, so I won't make us talk about my Australian internet woes for the rest of it. I just wanted to ask you guys
what's most important.
It does fucking suck.
Covered some important ground.
But yeah, Alanah, is there anything else anyone wanted to say about the conference? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I don't. This is part of IGN's thing.
Go.
No, please, Mike. Far more important. Mine's wholly self-serving.
Oh, okay. Oh, no worries. So my question actually for you guys was, it was much more concise, right? The intros were very short. It was much more like a direct in terms of there was no spreadsheets. There was the celebratory kind of video at the start. Well, the Troy video, as we've discussed, that kind of covered all the stuff from last gen. The highlight reel of
Austin just at the
all
end.
that.
I know I was the afterthought.
but it seems odd to me that it was a much shorter conference than we're used to, and I'm just interested in what you guys thought. I wonder if that's part of what prevented the kind of the excitement and or what kind of dulled it a little bit was just that it didn't feel like such a big event. It was very concise and brief.
I want to say I
more
feel
games, which was what we always want.
I fit in between Austin and Troy on my read of it, and that I was maybe more excited than it seems like Troy was, less excited than Austin. I was very middling on it. I like the pacing of it a whole lot. It was this is such a minor complaint, but I hated that they just kept transitioning between things with the logo, when in the room they've had us just snap between trailers before. Even when we were there in person, they've had it go trailer, whereas they kept pulling up that PlayStation logo every time. It's like, why do you keep doing
I think they're trying to think about it. Marketing is going, we have to instill this into people. It's no longer Sony Interactive Entertainment. Now it's PlayStation Studios. They're launching a console. They're also rebranding. That's
I get the literal
You mean the ident? You mean the graphic?
Yes,
shader effect
I mean the
with
graphics. It would show up with the triangle and the cross.
Oh, you're saying the loading screen?
Yeah, he just kept doing that, and I was like, stop.
Which is wait a minute, you're saying mixed signals, no loading screens, except for when we talk about it. Then there's loading screens.
Yep. No, so I think
it was still over 2 hours though.
No, it was over 1.
Really, it felt fast.
I think it was an hour and 15.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It definitely wasn't 2 hours. Yeah, I think it was about an hour and 15. I really do, because I know that I had a podcast scheduled immediately after.
It was in and out. There were more games than usual, I think, and definitely more indie games, which was cool. But there was very little filler. It was very lean. other than, as you say, those really long idents.
I
For
think-
what it's worth, I liked that. I like the it. Sometimes those things, the traditional format, sometimes feel very indulgent and like now they've got a whole weekend and a stadium full of people to kind of cater to. So it makes sense that it would be more indulgent. It's actually more appropriate to that context. But for me, in the context of everybody's watching this on YouTube, I think sort of getting to the point and showing some top level kind of highlights and some major trailers and then being like, and we're out. That felt about right for me. So I didn't think it was too, I liked the relative.
Oh no, it definitely wasn't a
Agreed.
negative for me. It was just, I thought it was an interesting shift. And I wonder, I keep asking myself with all of this stuff, like whether we're going to go back. Like whether we will have the
good question.
Maybe not.
2-hour E3 with
I don't know that
with the
PlayStation ever goes
Lamborghini
back.
that comes out of the stage. and the
Xbox will
kind
keep
of
doing it. I mean, they
pointless
have the
cameo.
Microsoft Theater. Like, I don't think Xbox has reason to stop. I don't think PlayStation will do it again.
I think
going forward.
PlayStation wants to do their own. They're so focused on community. They were already building PSX up. They were already pulling out of E3. They were already stopping to do any other trade shows besides. I think that those shows are going to be more about developer than publisher, or definitely hardware, because there's just not much of a need for them. Let's put the developer forward, or even put the publisher forward. Put your Activisions and your Ubisofts forward and let them showcase their games. But as far as like hardware, I don't think they need to be there. I don't think that PlayStation needs to be there. It's different when you have so many first party studios, but I think that there's probably going to be. I don't know if trade shows will come back, man. E3 has been trying to kind of keep up and change when it stopped being a trade show and started being a public show. I feel like that got away from what E3 was. I know we've talked about this before, Mike, where you're like, this is still where I do a majority of business, and Austin the same way. But I feel like those things will transition over to GDC, and I don't ever want to see something like GDC become like I don't want to see cosplayers at GDC.
Yeah, but I also don't want to see
I definitely
GDC go digital because
sorry.
that's such an important, for students, for example, such an important in-person networking event that one going digital, I feel like, is a huge loss. I really hope so.
Honestly, like
agree.
I'm already feeling it. Like I'm already feeling, and then both in terms of like there's buddies in the industry that I see at every event that I'm not seeing. Obviously,
camp
but,
friends.
like. Yeah,
Not only that, but also
then
like what
actually-
Rami does. Rami, like he's been so instrumental and influential as far as getting like game makers, especially from the Middle East, who would never have the opportunity. Like he's become like
GDC.
this. Yeah, get him to GDC. So I don't
work out
wanna
their
see-
visas
But it
and all
matters.
that.
Those meetings, it's. I feel like I've said it before on the show, but like I think players underestimate how much that's actually the point of these events to some extent. Like people like me who need to. I need to go out every 2 or 3 years and sell someone on letting me make a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a business there, and it's. We're doing fine, to be clear, but like it's definitely harder. It's harder to get stuff in front of people.
I still
it's harder
feel like
to have those conversations.
E3
That
for
20
press
meetings in
as
3
well.
days just doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
Outside of that,
You
So
can't
great.
get previews efficiently without E3. I know that. Like from the amount of ones I've done on Discord, 2 of which I scrapped entirely because the footage was so unwatchable when they were streaming. That's games that
I
would
know
usually
my,
get coverage in person that aren't now.
It's weird
My
times.
4 years ago, I guess, at GDC was when I get a message from a friend who said, hey, I got a buddy who's sitting at the W Hotel bar and you should go meet him. He's there right now. And I went over there and that was Jack Attridge. And literally the only reason I ended up scoring Erica was because I went and met a random stranger at a bar during GDC. And something like that happens at almost every GDC.
Yeah.
Rod Ferguson asked me to be
for
in Gears of
everyone,
War at
right?
E3.
For everyone who's there.
There's another
Wow.
game I get to announce that I'm in soon that was asked at E3. They had a meeting with me at E3 that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise. They're not going to email me and ask me to do this stuff. It's,
And what I love is it's not necessarily the behind closed doors. It's at the food
in a
truck.
bar at the.
It's at the bar.
yeah, the Rod
It's-
Ferguson asking me to be in Gears was just in the food court. People were coming up asking us for photos. We just had that conversation. It was so weird.
You want to be in my game?
That's why we did it.
That's what I miss. Is I do miss the opportunity to, like you said, Austin, camp friends, and more than anything, more than the games that are announced. To me, the reason why I like these press conferences, the reason why I like these events, is that it reminds us that it's such a community of people. And it is a partnership between the player and the publishers and the people that are making the games. at the core of what all of this is. That's what's most important. So we could talk about the ray tracing. We could talk about the intricacies
I'm
of the
so happy
hardware.
about the ray tracing.
But at the end of the
Looked
day,
good in Ratchet and Clank, didn't
I
it?
fucking love ray
Ray
tracing,
trace
man.
floor was lovely.
Ratchet and Clank, we
It's-
stand. Like, I want
it's
that
all
into me.
about the people that have made that hardware, have made that title, that are putting the controller in the hands of the players. That is what, to me, this is all about. And that's something that no matter how it looks, whether it's online or in person, that's the thing that's always at the root of this. And that's what I'll always be excited about.
It is hard sometimes to remember how friendly and passionate and excited the games community can be when you're not getting to see those people in person. And it's something that I've always found important for my career. I've been working on the internet, or I've had a larger than average following on the internet for, I think, 10 years now. And that can be really awful until you're in person, and then people are the best, and you get to talk to people who like the same stuff as you at a PAX about whatever indie game they play that they were excited about. And that is just, you can't do that on the internet. And it's so nice. And it does feel like a really big loss, because our industry is really fucking cool and impressive and full of so many creative people. And losing the ability to just like enthuse about that in person is a thing that, like Ratchet and Clank, for example, this is a thing that I keep wanting to talk to people about, but what forum do I have to do that? Like, if I were at the JW, yes, other than this podcast, that would be the one that I would be like, but look at what that game was doing. If I tweet that, people are like, what do you mean? And then I have to just explain it, and then it's just not as fun. So yes, it does feel like a loss. But for the conference in general, I think I did really enjoy it. To fully answer your question, Mike, the one thing that I think probably prevented my hype is that there weren't that many reveals that I was super excited about. We knew about Horizon
There weren't
Zero
any
Dawn.
like big kind of Shenmue style, oh my god, they did
Lost
it, they
Guardian,
actually did it
even
moments.
Final Fantasy. I mean,
Yeah.
Demon Souls Remaster. Unfortunately, some of these were like basically leaked. So Horizon,
We knew about Demon Souls, didn't we? I felt like we knew that going
we weren't
in.
supposed
Was
to,
it
but we
leaked?
did. Yes, we did.
Okay.
I forget what the name is, but Horizon Zero Dawn 2 we knew about. I didn't know about
Yeah.
Resident Evil 8. That one, I had no idea. I was hoping for something Silent Hill related, as unlikely as that seems. But yeah, it was a lot of games that we'd already seen. So for me, the bummer was not getting huge new titles. Spider-Man's really the only one that like really shocked me.
There is always that slow speed up, isn't there, at the start of a console generation? There's definitely like, I feel like the big things, the games we're gonna love and remember, are the ones we're gonna hear about next year or the year after. Like this is
Probably.
you always have that.
But I even
I
would've
feel like
liked
actually,
new
honestly,
IP.
PS4 was kind of an outlier. PS4 had some really good games at launch.
Infamous
and the one
Second
Troy's
Son
in.
was a launch title.
But
That's so weird to think
exactly,
about.
that's
It
what I'm saying.
was.
Is that was amazing.
Yeah.
It was.
It-
Infamous Second Son was a
Like
launch title.
that was
Shadow
a
of War
better
was a launch
game than
title.
you usually get from a launch title, for sure.
You're
Official?
discounting the fact that in the montage at the end, the single shot they showed from the path list was a particular archery animation that had not been revealed before. So I'm a little incensed
well,
at
okay.
There
your
you go.
lack of
There
hype
you go.
over the archery animation. So yeah,
There was
My games are all so secret they weren't in it. That's how exclusive and interesting my stuff is.
There was this one game that I've forgotten the name of. I think it might have been like Nico or something. That looked very Studio Ghibli. The one that had like, they literally look like the Ghibli soot sprites from Spirited Away.
Oh, I know the one you mean. Yeah, it was kind of like
I don't know what it's called.
Pikmin-y kind of.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, a little bit Pikmin-y,
Yeah.
but also like
actually
I would
forgotten
guess
the
that it's a
names of-
Metroidvania. That one, I was like, that game looks incredible. Still very indie looking, which like not to discount that. I guess I just want to know what the first party studios are working on in general. And I mean, we do know of as far as Guerrilla and Insomniac are concerned, which like just always want to say Sony buying Insomniac. People kept, when that announcement came out, kept congratulating Insomniac, and I was like, congratulate Sony. Like, that is such a good studio with so many talented people. Their writing staff is full of some of the coolest women I've ever fucking met in my life. I love them.
dude.
They're so cool. And it's just, yeah, Insomniac's just fucking, they even made really good
Right up
Oculus
to the top,
exclusives.
like even the bosses of Insomniac are all.
Yeah. Just
It's
a
a
great
great
studio.
studio.
Like,
It's a
congrats to
great
Sony
studio.
for fucking acquiring Insomniac, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, so lucky to be able to do that. So, definitely stuff to be excited about. I'm glad we got to see what it looked like. I want to know how much it costs. and I would like to see more games. But you
That's
are right,
the
Mike.
big question still, isn't it? Like
Is
that's
that a
gonna-
question?
The
It's
price?
gonna just be. It's gonna be
Yeah,
too
well,
much.
Yeah,
It's
that's
gonna
the
be.
thing,
It's gonna
right?
be
Like,
like yeah.
Do you want
It's
to
gonna
put
be really
bets in?
expensive,
Just
like-
see what happens. We'll buy each other a pizza. I'm gonna guess 450.
really?
I was gonna say
I'm going
500.
up on that. I'll take that. I'm
Okay,
going
I'm gonna
like
write these down.
550,
I'm gonna write these
600.
down in a Google Drive.
Wait, what is the question? What are we
Dollars,
betting?
right?
We're betting
Dollars.
on how much it's going to cost, and we will buy food and have it delivered to someone's house, whoever is
Sounds
correct.
good.
Okay.
Alanah, you got 450,
I guess 450.
449.
Yeah, I'll take 550. I'll take the
Okay,
550.
but which edition are we doing? Is this the
I'm
standard
gonna
or the digital?
say the digital only version is going
Oh,
to be
whoa. Okay.
is going to be more appealing. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to go $3.99 for the digital, and they're going to go $4.99 for the optical.
Okay,
So
that
your
means-
$4.99 is you're doing because I said 500, so you're really
So
going
let's do
Price
$4.99
is
on
right.
Okay,
we'll-
so
let's have a
Alanah
dollar
has
under
said
you.
450. Mike, what did you
optical.
say?
I said 550 for optical.
$550.
I'll jump on 4.
I'm doing 5.
Troy's
No,
5.
Troy, you said $4.99. I have to keep you to that, and Austin is 5.
$4.99. Yeah, keep it to me.
Okay.
Come on.
And did Austin get 5?
I said
Neither
5
of these guys
before.
understand how you spread your bets.
Closest
on a
without
thing-
going
on a-
over. They
on a
could
thing
do
like this.
501,
It's amazing.
you know, and then it's like Austin wins.
That's amazing.
So-
Well, me and Alanah basically.
proud I
are
would
gonna
be in
win
that
this, right?
instance.
One of us,
501st
like, by
because it's a
definition.
Star Wars edition, and that's what it is, right? It's that's what now we
That
understand
would
why
be-
it's white and black.
That would be good.
I
That
don't
would
know.
be
This will
good,
be
actually.
interesting to see. I will save this document and I will remind myself to look at it.
Put it
PlayStation
in an important
price,
file somewhere.
predictions.
Essential
It's in my Google
files.
What would be hilarious is if they did a 501st edition that's pure white, but then there's just a scorch mark somewhere right in the middle of it.
Oh. And when you
To talk
load it
about
up, it
Star
goes
Wars,
fam,
right
fam,
before I really
fam,
do have to
fam,
go.
fam.
I
do
don't
too.
think they're canceling.
What?
What is it? D. Is it? I want to say D23.
D23.
It is
Oh,
D23.
D23.
I don't think they
Yeah,
canceled it, and
the
I don't
Disney
think they're
conference.
going to. I think that's gonna because they're opening
Well,
the
Disney's
parks
reopening.
They couldn't because
Yeah.
they're opening the parks, and that
Parks
would
are
be
opening,
bad
yeah.
optics. They're like, we're still doing the show.
soon. That seems insane. It's in August. They're opening the parks, and they're gonna have a conference. Is this gonna be like the test of the conference where everyone's wearing masks? Fucking hell, Disney.
Could be.
Could be.
Everyone comes out with a
Damn.
Disney themed mask. I don't know.
You're gonna be like
That'd
on
be
stage.
weird.
They just hand
Anthony
out-
Carboni there with his microphone. Fucking goddamn.
They're gonna hand out stormtrooper helmets as the
I
map.
want
Like
to see
they're
what
gonna hand out
Carboni
like
would
certified.
wear mask-wise. I feel like Carboni would rock a.
He
He
sent me some pictures of
absolutely
his
would.
mask. He has this like it's got lights in it. It's got
you go.
wiring
I'm
in
not
it. It's like a cyberpunk.
None of this surprises
I'm
me.
not surprised
None
at
of this
all.
surprises me. That guy shows up. fair
God
play.
bless him.
Yeah, a fabulous boy. All right, thank you for joining us, everyone, this week. I am leaving links in the description for the show, probably indefinitely, for places that we would love to see you guys donate to instead of supporting the show financially, if that's a thing that you are able to do.
Yep.
Thank you to everyone who
Please
donated
do.
last week. I ended up submitting the amount that we raised for the Minnesota Freedom Fund campaign yesterday, and it totaled $65,000, which is amazing. So thank you guys so much for
Wow.
all of your support. We appreciate it. Our thoughts are absolutely with everyone out there protesting and fighting the good fight and doing what we can. So thank you for listening to the show. Thank you for supporting us, and thank you for letting us talk about video games in your ears
This was nice.
at any point in time. We'll see you guys next week.
We're waving.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm waving.